We're Charlie and Leanne, a couple from California who left our cushy suburban life to spend the next several years cruising around the Pacific Ocean on our boat, Juliet. And our little dog, too.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Adventures on Juliet. As you can see, we're still in our little rented apartment here in the Paz, which has worked out really well for us. It's right outside the marina, so steps away from the boat, so we can get there easily for all the various projects that we're working on. Some upgrade projects, some repair projects. But in the meantime, we have a big project that we want to share with you. We've been replacing our house battery bank of traditional lead acid batteries with a newer battery technology called Lithium Iron Phosphate batteries. I know that a lot of boaters are interested in this new technology. Perhaps they're thinking about changing out their own batteries to Lithium Iron Phosphate batteries. So we would like to share with you the process that we went through to decide on replacing our batteries with this new technology, and walk you actually through the whole process of doing the replacement, the installation, and all of that. So if you're at all interested in lithium iron phosphate battery technology, come along with us as we do Tech Talk on Juliet.
We've broken this up into 2 episodes. In this first one, we'll cover why we decided to do this, why we chose these specific batteries. We'll do an overview of the plan, and then we'll walk through the actual installation. Then next week in part 2, we'll talk about how we configure the controllers for the charging sources and do a wrap-up.
There are several reasons why we decided to go with these lithium iron phosphate batteries. The first reason is that they're very safe. They're thermally stable, they don't get hot, they don't explode, they don't catch on fire. The second reason is that you get a lot of usable capacity out of lithium iron phosphate batteries. You can take them up to a high stated charge and bring them all the way down to as low as 10% stated charge. It gives you a lot of capacity out of a battery. The third reason is that they can accept a lot of charge, which means when we're charging the batteries with our generator, we don't have to run it as long because they'll charge up faster. The fourth reason is that they have a much flatter voltage curve as the capacity is being used. Lead acid batteries, the voltage drops pretty steadily as the capacity is drawn down from the batteries. Lithium iron phosphate batteries are pretty much flat, which makes the electronics very happy. The pumps, the electronic devices, lights, everything will work better with these lithium iron phosphate batteries. The other reason is that they have a lot more energy density compared to lead acid batteries. What that means is you're packing a lot of capacity in a smaller package. These batteries weigh much less and they're much smaller than traditional lead acid batteries. The other big reason is that you get a lot more cycles out of these batteries. Lead acid batteries typically get maybe 300 cycles from fully charged to discharge before they start degrading. These will get a couple of thousand, 2,000, 3,000, possibly more. Those benefits basically result in having a much more cost-effective battery bank if you factor in the entire lifespan of the batteries. Once we decided we were going to go with lithium iron phosphate batteries, the next decision we had to make is which ones. There's a lot of choices out there. Originally, I was thinking of going with what are called drop-in replacement batteries like Balmar, but then I learned that there's really no such thing as drop-in replacement. You can't just take the Balmar batteries and put them where the lead acids were and walk away. You have to basically go through and reprogram all your charging devices based on very specific details. Since I was going to do that work, all that research, configuration, I thought I might as well go with more of a do-it-yourself, a DIY approach where I can actually package the cells and configure the BMS to work with everything. Gives you a lot more flexibility in what you end up with. But the problem with that is there are a ton of different types of cells and BMSs out there, and it was a real struggle for me to figure out which ones to go with. Everybody has a different opinion. Well, when we got down here to La Paz, Rich Boren from Paz Cruisers Supply helped make that real easy. He bought a bulk load of these Eve cells. He took all these cells that he imported from China, he top balanced them, he matched them, he packaged them into packs of 12-volt battery banks. He found the BMSs, put the connectors on them, and basically provided me with all those pieces pre-packaged for a very cost-effective price. So I'm very happy with these. I think they're going to work out really well. Here we are about to begin our house battery upgrade project. And over here we have our existing house battery bank, meaning these are the batteries that we live off of when we're not plugged in at the dock. And what we have here are 6-volt AGM batteries. They're like golf cart batteries. Each one is 190 amps at 6 volts. So if you add those all up into 3 banks at 12 volts, it brings you up to 570 amp hours. Now, because these are lead acid chemistry, you can only really use them down to about 50% level. If you go below that, then you start degrading the battery and they won't last as long. Well, given that the batteries typically only get charged to about 90%, and you can only bring them down to 50%, that means you only have about 40% of that amp hours being usable. That brings it to about 228 usable amp hours per day, which is about what we experienced when we were cruising. This new bank here is the new lithium iron phosphate chemistry, and these are small packs of 280 amp hours at 3.2 volts. You add 4 together and you get a 12-volt battery. So I've got 2 of these. That means that 2 of these we have a total of 560 amp hours. And the thing about lithium iron phosphate is you can use these down to 20% state of charge and still have plenty of life left. So because they'll probably get charged up to about 90%, going from 90 to 20, that's a 70% difference. If you multiply 560 amp hours by 70, that gives you 392 amp hours that are usable. So this small combination of batteries here, it takes up a third of the space and a fraction of the weight, will give us almost double the usable capacity out of these batteries compared to the original house battery bank. The interesting thing about this is it's kind of like a little erector set project. We've got the batteries which were actually pre-assembled and pre-top balanced by Rich at Paz Cruisers Supply. So he's already spec'd them out and verified that they're all, equal and they're all good, and packaged them. What I need to do is, after I remove all these batteries and the cables, I need to orient these in this box so that they're nice and secure. And I intend to use a board that I will essentially use metal rods to hold the batteries in place in a section here. And then once I do that, I put these little studs in the terminal posts and use these bus bars to connect these in series and then in a parallel configuration. So I'll have 4 batteries in series, and I'll put the 2 of them into parallel, hook them up to a new battery switch, new fuses. I have a 400 amp T-class fuse for the total bank. Each battery will have a 300 amp terminal fuse on it, and we'll have new bus bars so we can clean up all this wiring and make sure that everything is wired to a bus bar. We'll have everything going through the same shunt, which measures the amount of capacity used from the battery bank, and this will allow us to better manage and monitor the batteries. The other cool thing about these batteries, something I really am interested in learning more about, is this. This is a battery management system. It's the Overkill 120 amp BMS, battery management system. And what this does is it'll have a lead to each one of these cells, and it'll watch where the cells are, and it also has a temperature sensor and a Bluetooth transmitter. And so I can monitor all of this on my phone or iPad. But what the battery management system does is it makes sure that the battery doesn't go below a certain voltage. And if it does, it'll shut things down. Or if it goes above a certain voltage, it'll shut things down to help keep these batteries safe so that you don't destroy them or cause any problems. They also have the temperature sensor, which will do the same thing. If the temperature gets below freezing, it'll shut off the charging. If it gets above a very high temperature, I can't remember what it is, it'll also shut off the charging and the discharge. So these have already been crimped with end connectors by Rich. So I basically just will be assembling all of this and then going through my charge sources, and I have 3 of them. One from the alternator on the diesel engine that has a regulator that's all configurable. I need to make sure that the configuration is set up to these types of batteries and won't exceed the limits. And then we have the solar panels, and those also have charge controllers that are configurable. We'll configure those. And then we have an AC powered or shore powered battery charger, and that needs to be configured. Once all those things are configured, now we can turn it on and manage it and monitor it. So that's kind of an overview. We'll go through the process. First thing I want to do is paint this up, get it looking nice, and then we'll be ripping this stuff out, and we'll take some videos and photos along the way.
This diagram shows all of the main components for the batteries and charging sources, with the batteries on the left and the charging sources on the right.
So I've already disconnected all the leads that went to the batteries. Now I'm in the process of disconnecting these batteries that are put in series, and then we'll remove the batteries.
Yep. You got company.
Okay, I'll be right there. These old batteries are 69 pounds each. Adding some non-skid shelf liner material. So we finally have the batteries mounted, secured in this box, being lightly compressed by this board with these steel rods to hold it in place. We've got a neoprene rubber mat on the bottom to help cushion it from vibrations. Now what I'm going to do is install the studs on this battery, and then we'll install the battery management system, and then it will be ready to the batteries will be ready to go. We still have to create new positive leads from here and here to this T-class fuse, and I've got an electrician coming back later this afternoon to do that. But we should have the batteries all set up, ready to go. We just connect those two positive leads, and we should be in good shape, ready to test the batteries. Rich provided these bus bars, and I added the insulation to them yesterday. So we'll be feeding the negative to the BMS, and the positive will go to the fuse on each one of these things. That puts these 4 cells into each cell is 3.2 nominal volts. Putting them in series like this makes essentially a 12 volt battery pack. So we'll have 2 12 volt battery packs, this one and this one. On the positive terminals, we'll be using these terminal fuses with 300 amp fuses. So we'll be using one Overkill Solar battery management system, 120 amp 12 volt BMS per 12 volt battery pack. And what this does is it monitors the low temperature, high temperature, low voltage, high voltage, and will stop charging or discharging if any of those thresholds are met. And that will help protect the battery and also help keep the cells equalized. It has some basically heat sinks in here that will offload if a cell's getting too high to help keep them in balance. And Rich has already top balanced these batteries, so hopefully once we fire this thing up, check the voltage, so it'll be pretty even, and then the solar panels will come in and charge them back up to help get them all equalized. That's the plan. We have a Bluetooth module here, a transponder that will allow us to read and see what's going on with the BMS from our mobile devices. And then these are the leads that go to each one of these battery cells to monitor the voltage and the temperature. This is a temperature sensor here. So I'm going to go ahead and wire this up. Okay, so I've wired up the first battery pack, this one here, and we have the balancing cables all installed, BMS is connected, the Bluetooth module is lit up, and I'm actually able to see all the data on my phone, which is really cool. It shows me that we have 13.85 volts, it's 100% charged, and each cell is really close, within a couple of millivolts. And I think I have to plug in how many amps the battery cell is, and then it'll take over from there. I'm just labeling each cell so we know which cells correspond to which on the BMS. Now that I know that the battery works and the BMS works, I'm going to stick the BMS to the side of the case there using some double-sided tape. This 3M VHB tape is great. Battery 1 is done. So both batteries are now completely wired up, in that they have the battery management systems wired up. We have temperature voltage sensors for the solar panels, for the inverter charger, and for the alternator wired up. The only thing I need to do now is get cables made to go from the positive leads to the T-class fuse. I have the cable, the connectors. I'm waiting for the electrician Will from Tex-Mex to come by and do the final measurement, crimp on the connectors, put on the heat shrink, and then we'll put it all together. Once we do that, then we just need to configure all the devices, make sure everything's set. But I've already been able to look at the BMS for both batteries, and batteries look really good, putting out great voltage. They're pretty much fully charged. So I'm really curious to see how this goes tomorrow when we have the solar panels turned on, and we'll go from there. But it's looking really good. It's so much cleaner than before. We spent a lot of time and effort redoing the bus bars here, cleaning up all the wiring, and I think it's going to be a lot cleaner, a lot easier to manage, and a lot safer. One of the things we installed for the lithium battery upgrade was this alternator protection device. And what this does is it protects the alternator if there's if the lithium battery management system shuts down the batteries due to any excursion, like over temperature, under temperature, overcharge, undercharge, overcurrent, undercurrent. If we didn't have this, it could potentially ruin the alternator if it was doing a full charge and then the battery shut down automatically. So this will protect that, and it's all wired up nice and neat. The alternator is just right down here, so it's real close to the alternator, and it's good. Part of what we did is we cleaned up or tidied up the battery cables up underneath the V-berth. We used to have this bus bar for the negative cables that all the negative cables went to, and it was in front of the battery box, so the battery cables had to go from the batteries around up to the bus bar and back. And when we cleaned it up by bringing the bus bar forward, we eliminated about 12 feet of negative cable. And then we also removed several of the leads that went into the positive side of the battery, because again we installed new bus bars, so these are some of the battery cables that we were able to eliminate. We actually eliminated a lot more, but we reused some of the cable for jumping to other things. So I'm very happy with this, because less cable means, you know, less distance and less voltage potential for voltage drop, even though this is good heavy duty cable.
Well, that's all for this week. Be sure to come back next week when we will review what we did and then do a deep dive into configuring our charging source controllers. We encounter a big obstacle that gets us all hot and bothered, and then Charlie will do a project retrospective. And when it's all over, we'll celebrate at our favorite restaurant. There's a list of links in the description, and if you have any questions, just drop us a comment. Thanks for watching, and we hope you learned some valuable info about LiFePO batteries. If you did, please click like and be sure to subscribe.